set. Lights, camera, action. Roll camera.
Hi, I'm Clint, and this is my wife, Penny Bragg, and we're from Inverse Ministries. And we're going to just share with you a brief story about our lives. In 1989, Penny and I were married for the first time in front of our friends and family in our church family. We were the Little Church Darlings, and we served in several different ministries in our church, but what happened was less than 2 years after we were married, we landed up divorcing. What happened was Penny went her way, I went my way, like the Red Sea, it parted and went in two different directions. Well, that's what happened to Penny and I. I was in Florida, Penny was in California, and what happened was that we found out 11 years later that we had run parallel lives with each other. We both went into education, and we both had a crash and burn during that time we were separated and divorced. And what happened was after 11 years of being divorced, God miraculously put Penny and I back together, and we remarried again 11 years after we divorced.
This is the introduction, opening podcast to a series that not only tells you a little more about our story, but also the big question, which was, how do we do marriage right this time? We had failed once. We didn't want to fail again, and there was no guarantee we would make it. But during our separation, we did change in terms of our priorities. We put God first in every area of our lives. And so we figured if we had been doing that, during the separation, if we did that during our marriage, then our marriage would have a better chance of being restored. So that's what this podcast series is all about. It really is the first 5 years of our reconciliation and the process of restoration that God took us through. It's based on the book of Nehemiah, but kind of overarching that, we'll talk in 3 general areas during this series. The first is standards in your marriage and how to make sure that your marriage stays aligned with God's standards. We had to work through that. What does His Word say about marriage? Secondly, we'll talk a lot about accountability, won't we? And prayer partners and how important it is to a marriage relationship. And finally, we'll talk a lot about assessment, making sure that our marriage continues on the road of restoration and continues to make progress and deepen in our lives together. So those are kind of the overarching. It's like a triangle, three-legged stool, if you will, that we'll focus on as we go through this series.
So this podcast is really about giving you information. We want to unpack the tools that God taught us, and it's interlaced throughout that triangle that Penny was talking about. But more importantly, we want you to know that these tools, that you can use them immediately after you finish watching this podcast, and it can begin to make a difference in your lives. Now, if one partner is for it and the other one isn't, it's going to take some time and some prayer and some work with God. But basically, we want to help you to take your marriage to the next level, no matter what level it's at right now.
Everything that we do in these podcasts is based on our book, Marriage on the Mend. Yes. You'll find that on our website at inverseministries.org. We encourage you to get a copy and follow along as we journey together on the road of restoring and strengthening our marriage to last a lifetime.